This is the Nassaman Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zella.
Welcome to the Isles Fix postgame show with the Nassaman. That's James and I. To my left, or I'm not sure how it shows up on YouTube. I don't really pay attention. As far as I know, to my left is James Nichols of the fourth period. How are you?
Doing swell. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm not going to lie to you. I did set a 15-minute alarm between the second and the third period, and I took a little nap.
Oh.
Not going to lie, because I was not in the right headspace to do this afterwards, and I was not going to have coherent thoughts.
Okay.
So I decided to take a 15. I figured I had 17 minutes. I didn't start it right away, so 15 minutes felt like the sweet spot. So I think before jumping into this game, because we won't have a regular episode this week.
No, the schedule's kind of funky.
Yeah, right before the break. So we wanted to do the post games seem to work. You all seem to like that, at least because there's a game tomorrow. So we'll be able to kind of digest this and move forward. But I guess before we deal with what was right in front of us for tonight, let's take a step back and talk about Sunday night against the Wild.
Yeah.
Controversial. It really kind of tore Isles fans apart, specifically on Twitter, from what I saw, which is likely a smaller bunch, but the louder group, which we're a part of. I'm not gonna take that away, but controversial. I feel like it took a lot out of the fan base in general, whether or not you think teams should be blown up or stay the same. It really took a lot emotionally, I think, out of the fan base because they did play a really good game. What were your thoughts overall on that game on Sunday night against the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time, and I just kept hearing your voice in the back of my head. When you want the Islanders to play meaningful games, and even if they lose, it's okay as long as they, we're in it, right?
Right.
And although, at this point of the season and where they are and how far back they are in the standings and how far they need to climb, you don't want to see them drop another 2 points. They didn't even get 1 point out of it, going to overtime or anything. It was tough to see them play likely their best game of the year with 43 shots on net just because of a sloppy first 5 minutes of the game.
And it's a full 60-minute problem, right? It's something that we said kind of all season. And, to counterpoint my own point is that's fine if you're playing well in general.
Yeah.
It's a different thing when you've only won 2 games out of 17 or out of 20 games or 21 games against teams in playoff position.
Yeah.
And when you're only beating the teams you're supposed to. This is a classic case of the bad on accidents where the Islanders were not supposed to be bad this season and they are an 11th place team.
Yeah.
And like through and through. They're beating teams around them and below, unable to beat anyone above them. And outside of the game against the Wild, they really haven't made much of a game against any of those teams unless they've won. They have not looked in them. So I guess that's nice to see.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is, and as we kind of chatted offline about it, but then, I did send those tweets out about what an incredible run the Islanders would need to go on, almost like that Doug Weight turnaround that we saw a number of years ago at this point, where he became the coach and they went like 24-14-2 or whatever it was, and it still wasn't enough. And now, considering the group and the coaching staff and all this stuff, and barring some trade that happens tonight, or tomorrow or something, this isn't really going to change. Like the roster is what we're looking at is what it is, and the rubber kind of needs to meet the road. And I don't see any major changes roster-wise, how they're playing to string that many wins together that they need to do. Really, even above that, right? You're talking about how many games left? 44?
About.
You're talking about 30 wins. The way that this team is playing right now, they're not capable of that.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a lot also, again, as we discussed in other other shows, other episodes. This isn't just a case of beating a bunch of teams. This is also, you got to make sure you're beating the Boston and the Capitals,
Right.
and they've not proven that they can do that on a regular basis.
It's true. It's unfortunate because, you know, they finally are healthy, right? Tonight you see the full lineup intact for the first time, and I was trying to think before. I couldn't remember when the last time they even were fully together, right? It might have been like the first few games of the season before, the first COVID wave hit, and then the injuries came. So, tonight was the first time in a while, probably dating back to early November, maybe late October, that the full lineup was intact
As it was intended, right?
as it
Like,
was intended, right?
to the best
And
of, save for Chara and whatnot.
right, and so now you look at the game that they played tonight, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and you say to yourself, again, it was against the Senators, it was a very Islander game, and you wonder, had all of these obstacles not happened, where they just might be if the health was sustainable, and the injuries didn't come, as well as the plethora of COVID games that were not postponed, and the players on COVID protocol that wound up missing time. So,
Yeah.
um,
I was thinking about this during the game because I was watching, and we're going to talk about Palmieri a little bit later. Just in his play, but in just thinking about him and Parise, you can isolate them. Even Pajot to a certain extent, who has offensive ability, but it doesn't really string it together regular. That's not necessarily his role. Do the Islanders have too many role players at this point, and are they the right ones? Because from what I'm seeing, it clearly isn't right. And when you do have injuries, you're unable to string it together. Where a lot of good teams, regardless of injury, manage to stay afloat one way or another.
yeah,
Are they deep in the wrong areas and have the wrong type of role players this time around? I'm trying to pinpoint, is it a roster thing? Is it a they never got their wheels going this season and their chemistry together? Or what? Like, am I thinking of an excuse, or are they just not good?
it's kind of like what I wrote about last week. Talking about, do they need another playmaker, and just meaning, not like a bottom six guy who's a good passer. Like, we're talking about your game breakers here, your Artemi Panarin types, your Evgeny Kuznetsov types. You need a guy in the top six who like Barzell can take over a game. I don't know. I don't think that they have too many role players at this moment. Maybe
Here's
you could make
I'll
the
go.
argument and say they have one extra role player, because if they had that elite playmaker or that elite talent in the lineup minus that one playmaker, now suddenly you're spreading out your offense with two elite guys who can create offense, and an extra set of skates on the ice who can distribute the puck well and create scoring opportunities for your role players to put the puck in the net, because those guys can do it.
Yeah.
You have to understand, Kyle Palmieri's shooting percentage for his career is a 12 point something percent. This year he's shooting now under 1.5%.
Oh,
And
that's not
that's
necessarily sustainable. I'll say
right.
this. Do they have, thinking about whatever your thoughts are on Bailey, not you in particular, Royal
Right.
you,
In general.
listener you, but I guess also you, in particular, Bailey, Parise, Palmieri. That's too many closer to bottom six, but mostly middle six players that the Islanders just don't need. Like, there's too
It's
many, and
fair.
that's kind of when I think about when players, and when fans, and even myself, when we spoke with Arthur Staple, even before we spoke with Arthur Staple about why Bavillier's name is thrown into that, even you got to throw him into the mix too. You have a lot of middle six players that aren't even performing at middle six levels,
Right.
and so maybe it's not they've turned into role players, and that's not what their role is. Their
Right.
role, Bavillier's role, is to score and be an offensive threat. That's also Palmieri's role. Bailey is technically supposed to be that playmaker.
Yeah.
He was that previously. So I understand them, if this is the season where they start making the decision, do we do something with this guy? I can absolutely understand that. Previously, he really was that guy.
Right.
I think he had done a really good job. This team made it deep into the playoffs 2 years in a row. You can forget what they did in the regular season for all their ups and downs, bumps and bruises, and what have you. They seem to figure it out in the postseason,
Right.
and that's fine. Whatever this construction is, though, isn't working. Like it's been solved for whatever reason, whether that's other teams or they just can't get it together. So when I think about almost besides Brock Nelson and really uh, Oliver Wahlstrom, there really isn't a threat in that middle six because none of those players. Breeze's playing his dick off. He's
Yeah.
playing like you can't deny the hustle. He might be the only exception where like I almost don't care what he does because he's playing well. But what I said about Parise throughout this season was that's not his role. That's not why he's there. He's out there to not make mistakes. You can't say that about everybody.
Right.
Bavillier is not supposed to be a ghost. Pajot is not necessarily supposed to be a ghost. Bailey can't be. And the only time you notice him can't be on a mistake. Same thing with
Right.
Chara, but for a different reason. That's my frustration right now. I don't there's too many guys, too many passengers. That's been since Jack Capuano. That's been a thing that we've said about this team, right? I don't get what's happening and what this team is anymore.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of guys. And there's no one moving the needle.
Yeah, and all that goes away with a game breaker. It's probably closer to what you said right now. Like did they just not get the right ones this offseason, right? I think a lot changed when you lost Jordan Eberle because he has that playmaking ability, whereas Palmieri isn't that same type of winger. They'll score the same amount of goals, they'll just do it in different ways.
Palmieri
And
is ideally, he is playing well with Brock Nelson.
sure,
I don't know I don't know. Bavillier has been the one. I mean, I know he scored tonight, um, against depending on where you're listening to this, I suppose I probably on Wednesday against the Senators, and in a scrappy goal, and you kind of expect that from him sometimes. Hell, Wallstrom scored 2
yeah,
from in tight. We'll talk about that style change for him a little bit later as well. I don't know. I guess I'm just overall frustrated. I was thinking about this all day. I was like, whether or not they win this game, I'm upset. Right? Like there's almost until they start beating good teams, there's no reason to be happy about where the direction this team is going.
yeah, and tonight was maybe a good start. You hope they take another one against the team they should against tomorrow.
Did they play well tonight
In,
though? Or
they
are the Senators just not good? Because I didn't see a good team beat a bad team. I saw a team that's better than the other team
you
win.
saw Islander hockey tonight. You saw them curate defense, turn it into offense, and then they controlled, the majority of play in the offensive zone once they got there. So I think tonight, yeah, they played a good game. For some reason or another, that's not clicking against, better skilled teams. But you saw much of what you normally saw in the previous 2 seasons tonight, in my opinion.
So we'll go back to the original premise here is like not playing a full 60 minutes. And that was the first few minutes, another bad goal by an Islanders goalie.
Yeah.
This one just kind of snuck up and rolled over him. That was like a video game where the goalie goes back in the net and it's like on his shoulder. You can almost not blame him for it. Sorokin, that is. But that's the 5th straight game they've allowed the first goal.
Yeah.
That's not success. Now they've managed to come back. Granted, it was against teams like the Flyers or the Senators. I think it was the Flyers a number of times. At least 1 or 2 of those games out of the 3 that they played against the Flyers. So you're not really playing against good teams where it's poise and it's all that stuff. You still do need to do it, but you need to be able to do it against better teams. Is that a real concern for you? Is that something they can shake after the All-Star break?
Yeah, I think so. You hope they do too, right? Because that schedule is condensed, it's rapid, and there's a lot of games. To you can't have these kinds of starts with all these games coming up, right? Especially if with the slim chance that they can make the playoffs. If they're really going to make that push, this can't happen. You saw it the other night against the Wild that when you get those slow starts like that, you go down 2-0 early, you still put up 43 shots and you lose a game by a goal. So um, they definitely should shake this off after the All Star game. Hopefully they do. It's not they're your atypical Islanders. This is something that's relatively new. Like you said, it's 5 straight games, but it's just been these past 5 games we've seen this happen in almost 4 years now. Since Barry Trotz took over, we haven't seen that kind of thing. So um, hopefully they shake it off after the All-Star break for the sake of their playoff chances. Um, no reason why they shouldn't. Pulak's back tonight. He looked pretty good. Aside from
That
that,
was gonna be the next thing is Pulak's return. How did he look?
yeah, he looked pretty good. Aside from that one mishap where he missed a Barzell pass, it just I don't know, skipped over his stick, maybe went under his feet.
He wasn't
Um,
as aggressive as I would have liked to see him. Bailey missed an assignment. Pulak wasn't as aggressive as I would have liked to see him on that first goal. It just gave them a little too much room in front of the net.
yeah, I think that they were just trying to ease him back in. I mean, listen, he missed 25 games. The last time he played was in November. Um, there was bound to be
Crazy.
some rust. It was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week injury. It turned out to be what 11 weeks. So it
Time
was
is not
just
real ananymore. So
yeah,
whatever November to now is,
yeah,
a really he was supposed to be back in December. We were looking at
right.
the early part or the early middle part of December. I think it had like 5 weeks in it. So
And
somewhere in
it's
the
February 1st.
second-ish week. And yeah, and now it's February 1st. So it was quite a long time. January felt like 3 months
Yeah,
in regular time. So it must have felt like an eternity if you're an athlete
right,
waiting on the sidelines to get better. And I did think it was interesting that it was pretty much on his own timeline.
right,
It wasn't, medical. He was I'm sure working with the medical team, but he seemed like he was pretty much in control of that. And if this and it kind of makes you think if this was a team where everyone thought that they were going to make the playoffs, maybe you push yourself to get back as soon as possible. And at the end of the season, you say, "Yeah, I was never really recovered from that injury." But considering that he's locked up to a contract, that's not really something that anyone's willing to risk
right.
and move too quickly. So um, I'm sure we're thinking too deeply about it just because we're frustrated and we have a lot of time to do this. But it wasn't great. Yeah, but I also thought he played pretty well throughout the game.
Right. Yeah, and you saw his shot on the power play come into play, once again. It led to a scoring opportunity and although he didn't get credited with the assist, he was largely the reason that created the scoring opportunity. So he's a huge addition to the lineup, no doubt. It's unfortunate that it comes at the cost of Robin Salo rather than, maybe letting Zdeno Chara get a few games to, take a breath and maybe rotating Andy Green in that same situation. Um,
Well,
but it's not the end of Robin Salo because he's now to the taxi squad, so it's not like he's down in Bridgeport. So I guess that's pretty good.
he's with the team. He's going through maybe getting that a different style Dobson treatment.
Yeah,
At least he's around the team. But I wanted to pause on something that you said, um, regarding Salo and that he's around and this and that. I think what a lot of people are asking is how you make that decision, like, I'll actually phrase it a different type of question. Where are the Islanders headed, and how do they make these decisions moving forward? If they're not a playoff team, play Salo. Like if you're just not going to do it, what the Chara needs games? He's just trying to hit a record. I don't. I think there's a lot of confusion as to how the Islanders are trying to do this because
well,
Salo's playing well.
right.
Is is there really just like they don't play young players and that's the end of it? Like is that just the whole conversation?
Well, I think that the thing here is there whether you or listener or anybody on Twitter want to believe it or not, Um, the Islanders are still trying to make the playoffs, and Barry Trotz's mind hasn't changed. Lou Lamoriello's mind hasn't changed, and neither has anybody's mind in the locker room. None of that
Mm,
has changed for
I
them.
don't think that they would never say it out loud, but when does it change? Like, is it as
I
you know,
don't think it changes.
the deadline is just further out this year, so you're just not gonna we're not gonna know until something like that happens?
I don't think that mentality changes for anybody until they're mathematically out of it. I don't. Come the trade deadline, let's just say the Islanders go on some magical run and they're, within 8 points and there's a month left to play, they're going to try and improve their team. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. It's going to be very difficult for that to happen, but you know, the mindset here is that they're putting their what they believe best six defensemen are out on the ice. Now, I'm not sitting here vouching for Zdeno Chara. I'm not saying he is the sixth best or even the seventh best guy that could have been out there. However, played a really good game tonight. And again, I understand it's against the Ottawa Senators, bottom of the division, bottom of the league, and they lost, a couple key players for this game. Totally understand that. But, he was fourth best in expected goals for % tonight. Him and Dobson had a really good game together. And, there's just not there's not as much criticism to give Chara lately as there used to be. And I get it, like, right? You don't
But is
want.
Salo better? I don't want like, "Oh, well, he's just not as bad." I'm trying to speak as like, myself who's also frustrated.
Yeah.
Play Put the best players out there.
And I
Just
think
put
that's what they think they're doing.
because Chara and I'll say, obviously, we are not anything remotely close to scouts or anything like doing true analysis on this, but just basing it from like Chara also makes mistakes. What
Sure.
the fuck is the difference? Who makes that mistake? I don't give a shit who it is. If Chara's gonna do it or Sal's gonna do it, if there's gonna be a mistake, Sal's the future. As far as we know, again, barring some trade that includes him, that's to be said of Bellows and Salo and Pavillier, whomever. Trying to deal with the team in front of us. I'm not worried about like, okay, then trade him. That I don't want to. I don't want to talk like that because that's all hypothetical and editorial, and that's not worth anyone's time. Dealing with what we actually have in front of us, I don't give a shit who makes the mistake. I want it for the most part. Sal's gonna, I feel, move the needle more than Chara, and
Uh,
that
uh,
I think a lot of people think that. I'm not has nothing to do with whether or not Chara's playing poorly or better or great. I Salo was playing really well. Give the kid time. There's no unless he like I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. There's I can't think of a good reason to have Char out there for the most part.
I'm I'm again
You can't
not.
trust Salo for all those games, giving him power play time and all this stuff and be like, "Oh yeah, now you're just not good enough to be in the lineup."
Well,
I don't understand.
the thing is, when you think about it, right? Who replaced Salo on that power play? Ryan Pullock. Now that there's another guy who can do what Robin Salo was doing back in the lineup, it's in Trotz's mind, a lateral move, or actually an improvement, right? It's not. It was never going to be, Salo replaces Chara. It was Salo replaces injured player, and now a
Oh, I
better
don't
player is
disagree with
coming
that.
back from injury, and you're not going to not play Ryan Pullock, right? So I don't think it was ever, a question of, oh, is it going to be Salo over Chara? It's going to be Pullock over Salo. I don't think there was that other question ever crossed their mind because Salo and Chara aren't the same kind of player, and they want.
I could understand keeping things balanced.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just frustrating. Again, mistakes are mistakes. I really don't care who's making them. I would just rather not see Char on the ice, or
Right.
rather, I would prefer to see Salo on the ice.
I think most people would agree with you, and I would too. I'm just thinking how Trotz is thinking right now. Keeping the balance. The kind of players that are playing right now. You have your defensive defenseman in Mayfield and Pellick. The other two guys in Pollock and Dobson can create offense, and then your bottom pair in uh, Green and who was there? Oh, yeah, Pollock was there tonight. But they're just keeping it balanced with the players in the lineup. And again, maybe there's value in Trotz's mind for Salo to be looking down from the press box and observing the game and taking notes from what Andy Green does every night, or maybe something that Chara does do that they want Ramen Salo to do maybe a little bit more.
Well, there's definitely seeing something in Chara, but I'll
Yeah,
poke a hole in what you're saying with this. Doesn't Salo help replace that Letty Taves type player?
yeah,
That
I'd absolutely agree
the
with you.
thing that Chara wasn't able to do, that he
Yeah,
is not that type of player. They've now brought this younger player up who's 23 years old and played with men in Finland or something like that, Scandinavia, playing in a professional league there. Doesn't he help replace that? Doesn't that actually
right.
give you the more balanced group that gave you success? And what you're seeing with Chara is not that.
Well, I think the thing is now, I don't know. It's so funny how things work out because now Noah Dobson is playing so well. Do they
But he
believe Noah Dobson to be that replacement?
absolutely
And,
not.
and
No. I
why?
Because he's not a puck moving zone entry defenseman like Letty and Taves were as far as driving offense. He is a when he's in the offensive zone, he can get the puck on that and he has an offensive eye for that. Those are not the same thing. I just wrote an article and I for the hockey writers that was published early today, and I'll push it out tomorrow. Um, I made that exact point. Dobson is not he's an offensive defenseman, but that's different than what Letty was doing or what Taves is able to do.
He's an
They're just
offensive
not
defenseman, not a puck moving defenseman, is what you're saying.
right. The same thing as a goal scorer and a playmaker.
Right.
Those aren't the same thing. And I think that's a similar um, distinction that I would make between Dobson and say Letty. The Islanders still need somebody that can skate the puck. What Salo actually does, frankly, is give you almost another Pelech out there. I've seen, and I made this point last time, last episode rather, where I love his ability to get out of trouble. He is able to get that puck away from a forechecking forward, twist really quickly, and find the open player. He's not carrying the puck out of the zone like Letty, but at least he's moving the puck up the ice. Dobson doesn't have quite. That's not where his skill set is necessarily. He's an in the offensive zone type thing. He has good defensive sense, and that's really good enough for what his role is, as far as I see it. He's not a Letty replacement. I'm not talking about
No.
points, right? I'm talking about zone entries, those other things that aren't necessarily on the score sheet that are more in that advanced analytics thing where Letty shined in very specific instances, not overall. We've seen those numbers; they weren't great. But what it helped the team do was just get the puck, carry the puck into the offensive zone, and get those types of things started.
Yeah.
On 3-on-3, Dobson's capable of that. He hasn't really found his voice with it yet. And watch, just like last time I said that he'll find it. But he doesn't really have that smooth skating ability.
Right.
Salo, again, like a Pelech, can really skate the puck. I think he's more of that replacement long term as far as a Letty type thing, right? To kind of create that top four where you kind of move Mayfield down. Ideally, it's like Dobson Salo, which would never happen
Right.
unless they kind of both magically mature into a 39-year-old tomorrow. That's never going to happen. But that's the type of maybe not that pairing, but something along those lines.
Maybe the mindset too, and this is something that just came to mind, is let's see what we have in what we signed this offseason, because when was the last time we got to see them play together? When was the last time the top six that we saw going into the 2021-22 season actually played together?
Yeah, that's
You know,
I understand. Look, Trotz trusts the older guys. They're not playing poorly. If the Wild game was in November, you like that game. The
sure.
fact that it was at the end of January and they're in a piss poor position,
Yeah.
you hate to see that game. That's the problem. It wasn't the
Right.
game. right? That game objectively was good. You can
Yeah.
walk away from that and you should feel good. It feels like shit because it was at the end of January
Right.
and it really meant something, whereas it wasn't a learning experience and it was absolutely something that they needed to do to prove to themselves and to the fans that they can move forward. That's the problem.
Yep.
It's really more about when that happened than anything else.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's unfortunate. Like I said, it's unfortunate that Pulak's return came with Salo sitting. I like how you said it though. Maybe it's some sort of variation of what Dobson went through, and that's what you hope, right? You hope that that's what they're doing for him, not to him. They are trying to do this for him so that his future looks just as good, although he's older. But his future looks just as good as Dobson's, or at least something close to it.
Yeah, because Dobson did take an important stride this season.
He did.
And I think that's important. So if that means
Absolutely.
that by next season, Salo maybe gets a quicker look than Dobson did because he's shown, during that kind of extended period when the Islanders defense was kind of in disarray.
Yeah.
Okay, it's really good. Now, if we get him in from the beginning, we can find who his defense partner is. We learn a little bit more about him. He does whatever we ask him to do in the offseason. He comes back. He's ready to go. That might be something that they're able to kind of utilize moving forward. Before we jump into some other topics, we're going to take a breather, take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side.
The moment we've been waiting for since September is finally here. In honor of the big game, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56, is giving customers 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in New York, meaning you can bet from almost a third of the country. If Sportsbook isn't in your state yet, play DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest for Super Bowl 56. New customers can get a free shot at $1 million top prize with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code THPN, and get 56-1 odds on either team. Bet just $5 and get $280 in free bets if your team wins. That's promo code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 56. 21 and older, minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text the TN Red Line 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467369. Nassau Hockey is also brought to you by Manscaped. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let wild hairs wreck you. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and our sponsors at Manscaped are here with the best tools to get you ready for the special occasion. This Valentine's Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. With our exclusive offer, go to manscaped.com and use promo code NHP20 for 20% off and free shipping. The holidays went by so quickly. Did you shore up your grooming game routine with the best tools for the job? The Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped is just the thing every guy needs in their life to make sure each and every day is a little more special. The number one product in this package is the Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer is designed to trim hair on loose skin. And get this, the trimmer's advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts, nicks, and everything else on your body. It even has a 400K LED spotlight so you can shave in the dark. Did I mention that it's waterproof too? Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts with the Performance Package 4.0. Their Shed Travel Bag and Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs to keep you comfy everywhere. Trust me, they're a big hit. Wearing them right now, and I love them. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code NHP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code NHP20. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day.
And we're back. Thank you for your patience. Thank you to the sponsors for kind of making this happen. We love both of those. Big Super Bowl coming up this Sunday. Who do you have?
Next Sunday,
Next Sunday, right? Because they always take the week off in between.
But they extended the playoffs this year for whatever reason.
Wasn't
So
there 17 weeks also in the
yeah,
season?
not the playoffs, the season. That's what I meant to say. They extended the season, so the extra week pushed it back. Like even my wife was like, "Isn't the Super Bowl next Sunday?" And I'm like, "Nope,
No,
it
but isn't there
is."
always a week between the NFC and AFC championship game and the actual
Oh
Super
yeah,
Bowl?
always
We
a
don't
week off.
play. Yeah, they always have a week off in
Yeah,
between.
the Pro Bowl I think is going to be this weekend.
Oh, very, very exciting. It's always in Hawaii. Am I making that up?
I think you're right.
I remember I only kind of know that because of collecting football cards as a kid and always seeing that
Yeah,
on them and occasionally catching something on ESPN about it. Either way, who do you have in the Super Bowl?
I want the Bengals to win.
Can I tell you how surprised I was to see that they were doing well? They were
Me
like,
too.
I don't even know how, like, I don't know the hockey equivalent. They were the Arizona Coyotes as far as I was concerned, like forever.
That's the Jets.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
New York
That's,
Jets.
that's fair. I just felt like the Bengals, it was like the Bengals, the Jets, the Lions,
Yeah,
like forever. Just like the Browns, they were just perpetually not good.
yeah. No, I was surprised too because the story of the second year QB Joe Burrow, he got injured in his rookie year, and even before that, he was like a walk on at LSU and wound up taking them to a championship. So it's like a really cool story for this kid, and I would just love for it to see it come full circle for him.
Hmm.
Although the on the other side for the Rams, Matthew Stafford was toiling away in Detroit for years. Now he's finally on a good team with the Rams and in the Super Bowl, and he's he's the guy that everybody thought he was going to be when the Rams drafted him. I'm sorry, the Lions drafted him all those years ago. So it's definitely an interesting new look, and Tom Brady retired officially today, so it's like the NFL is in a whole new era.
Yeah. I did see the Brady thing. I don't know enough about the NFL to kind of comment on it.
Me neither.
Um, that was a whole lot of names that I didn't know until you said Tom Brady.
I know a
Um,
little bit more than you, I guess. I know some of the big name QBs.
yeah, I when I was working at the brewery a little more often, you're watching games, you can kind of like get up with it a little bit.
Yeah,
It's just it's super not a strong suit of mine. I don't know if the Jets aren't doing well and like in the playoffs, it's kind of like the Mets. I love watching playoff baseball. Same thing with football, but
yeah,
like I don't know, my teams kind of need to be in it for
me
me
too.
to like super.
I'm like hockey all day, every day, and occasional other things.
Yeah, if I'm not watching hockey and, like, paying attention to that, I like, gotta get out of the house.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta go do stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Busybody.
something. I gotta, like, do a different activity. Like, I'm already sitting a lot. Like, doing
Right.
this, watching the games, and writing and all. Like, there's, like, if I'm not doing that, I'm like, Islanders are out of the playoffs this year. I'm taking, oh god, a break from hockey. It's gonna feel fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah,
It feels
definitely
like we've been just doing this
for 3 years.
for 3 straight years, and it's been like not even a full year
Yeah.
because it was like mid-season when yeah. So it's an absolute just kind of like a mess. I don't. I It was 2020, so maybe 2 years, right? I like I said, I can't tell time anymore.
Me neither.
Um, Back to the topic at hand though,
Mhm.
the New York Islanders.
Those
Um,
guys.
those guys. Um, they played a hockey game tonight.
They did.
Dive in a little bit more to that. Um, we kind of got off topic in the first half of the show, so we'll get back to the game at hand against the Senators. Um, During our break, I watched part of Trotz's uh, post game media availability. Spoke about Wallstrom. What did you see in his game tonight? Before I go into what Trotz said.
I thought he and his line were largely the best line out there. I think, it's interesting to see what's going on with Wallstrom only because, you know him more as a sniper, but more recently he's been getting in front of the net, going to the dirty areas, and even, he went to the box tonight for a roughing minor, and that's something that happens. I don't want to say often, but more in his game lately. And I think he's just trying to be physical out there. I think he's trying to be a presence on the ice, not just on the score sheet. So
Well, he can see that what Palmieri's doing out there, kind of making his own space.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
a little bit, and he's a little bit more of a pure goal scorer than that. I think he has a lot more of a touch than Palmieri does, or like it did in his career.
Mhm.
Um, but he does do a good job of creating his own space out there.
Yeah,
He's a heavier player.
right. And he's younger and he's got a little bit more speed to him. Not to say that Palmieri's slow, but I think that the talent is a little more raw for Wallstrom right now.
Oh yeah, and I meant
Um,
Palmieri's a little bit more of a heavy player, and but Wallstrom is seeing that and saying, I have to get more
oh
physical out there. I need to make space for myself. I need to go to the dirty areas." Because you kind of almost see that the last two games, Wallstrom's game's a little bit different.
yeah, well, and that was what I was saying, right? And so I like that edginess that he's putting into his game. I just hope it doesn't take away from his shooting game, which you know I think tonight the Islanders, I don't remember who shot the puck. It might have been Wallstrom, another broken stick on a
That was
one-time.
it was Wallstrom.
Yeah, so another broken stick on a one-timer chance.
It was
I hope
Bailey the
this
other night.
yeah, Bailey the other night. I think there was 2 that game even. So I just hope to see or not see his shooting game start to go by the wayside because he's being more physical and even planting himself in front of the net, kind of like Parise and Lee.
I
But
think it's just a
overall, I
different.
don't
I
think
think
it's
he's adding a dimension.
right.
And I think
Exactly.
that's
I don't think it's
good.
a bad thing.
Where you see that from Ovechkin even this season,
Yeah,
right? Where
exactly.
he's not just scoring goals. Um, you could say that about a number of seasons, but there'll be that he just evolved his game where he is going to those areas. He's obviously passing the puck a lot as well, uh, but he's making those opportunities, available for himself no matter what.
Right.
So I don't mind where he scores goals from, um, just as long as he's doing it.
Right.
So
Now,
I like that added dimension from him.
I haven't heard the clip yet, but I'm seeing people say that there was something that Trotz didn't like about Wallstrom's game. Is that something that you had heard?
Yeah, so that's why I watched just like a quick 50-second clip of what Trot said, and from what I gathered, it was some of the neutral zone play stuff, which I saw play in particular, where it was a little bit of a weak play where he kind of gave up on it. It was at the end of a shift, and he just didn't really get a lot on it, and he allowed the Senators to regroup very, very quickly, just over their own blue line and kind of push the pace going back the other way. And I
Okay.
knew that that was going to be a point of contention. Like that was going to be a thing, despite Wallstrom being better in the offensive zone and maybe playing a more overall aggressive game. Whether he's shooting the puck, he's still doing that, but he's going to the front of the net. He's scoring these kind of dirty area goals, similar to Anders Lee. And but it's going to be that defensive side of the puck, that neutral zone and in their own zone play that Trotz is going to continue to nitpick. So I think that's the hard part where I think as viewers of this and trying to dissect what Trotz is doing, um, it's hard to kind of pinpoint what you want Walsum to do on our side versus what Trotz wants. And that's how he views Char differently than we do. He views Bailey differently than we do. He views what's good and bad about Wallstrom's differently than we do. There's
Right.
an element to all of that we are not. It's not translating well, and it
Right.
might just be that the entire team isn't playing well. The whole thing isn't working the way that it did. So everyone's frustrated.
Right.
Tross isn't seeing what he wants. We're not seeing what we want. Those are just different things. It's
Right.
just all bad. It's all bad. So I think that's where we get frustrated when Wallstrom's not out there late in a game on that, against the Wild on Sunday. But Trotz is saying, you know, he first of all he said in that post game that yeah he's out there sometimes. We change it up. This is what it was this game. The players out there were playing really well. Palmieri was playing aggressive. He had him in the high slot. That makes a whole lot of sense. I understand that. Peugeot was also playing really well. Bailey's a distributor, whether you agree with that or not. That's what Trotz is seeing. So that group was out there. Dobson, Barzell, Lee. There's a whole bunch of different players. Wallstrom was not included in that. And it's like sitting him against Toronto. I think there was a huge uproar about that because he's a goal scorer, and then they score 1 goal in that game. I think I even said that. Thinking a little bit about it a little bit more, it's about the overall game. You can score a goal and be, this is a bad stat, but you can score a goal and be in -3, right? And I think he's worried that that's what's going to happen. Look, you can score all the goals you want. If you're not going to play both ends of the ice and you're not going to play the game that we need you to play here, you're not going to get the time.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating on our side of things to watch, right? Because you can just be like, why wouldn't he play against Toronto? That's silly.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And then you think, would it have been a worse game? Like, all right, so they lost 3-1. They lose 4-2, and Wallstrom scores, but he's also out there for a goal against, and he's not getting his share of shots on net. It doesn't matter.
I remember a time when Wallstrom, before he was in the NHL, he was already drafted by the Islanders, and his not draft stock, but his player stock started to go down a little bit. There was question as to whether he could kick it in the NHL, and maybe these are some of those things that were, being brought to light when he played in the NCAA. Now, granted, he did go after that weird stretch in the NCAA to the AHL, where he played much better. But there's these minor details in his game, like Trot said tonight, where he allowed the Senators to regroup and he didn't, focus putting enough pressure on the forecheck to, maintain the puck in their own zone. So maybe those are the minor details that Trotz really wants Wallstrom to polish off.
I really don't. At this point, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I almost want to see Beauvillier and Wallstrom switch. Because
And I
think
wonder if that'll
Wallstrom.
help.
Well, I say this because what you had said about Wallstrom not being hard enough on the forecheck or whatever, that's not the type of player he is. You're kind of, I think they're trying to shoehorn this thing. I understand teaching him the defensive side of the puck. I don't think anyone would disagree with enhancing that part of his game or any of the players' games on this team or in the NHL. I'm sure every coach would say that about everybody. Maybe not Mark Stone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's players that do really well. But Beauvillier seems to play a better style that would suit him being on the third line next to a Peugeot and next to somebody motoring like Bailey, Parise, and then having Wallstrom, Nelson, Bailey. That makes a little more sense to me.
Well, Bailey's playing with Barzell. So
if a Palmieri, Wallstrom, Nelson. Sorry.
See, now in my mind, that's too many. There's no distributor there, right?
So you flip Palmieri and Bailey at that point.
Maybe.
So 26, 29, 12.
Yeah.
27, 13.
If
21.
the thing is, neither Nelson or Peugeot are distributors. Not to say that they can't do it, but that's just not their instinct. That's not the first thing that they think to do. Nelson is a shoot first guy. Peugeot,
he's a straight line player.
He's a straight line player. So, if he's playing with a guy, and I'm not, sitting here beating the playing with Barzell drum again, but I'm just, the point here is if he plays with a guy like Barzell, who's looking for the shooter like Wallstrom, suddenly, the 10 goals he has, he probably has, 5 or 6 more already on the season. Now,
so
albeit that there is that risk, which I think is the thing that's going through Trotz's mind, right? If he gives Wallstrom those extra minutes, that's more opportunity for him to make those small mistakes.
But is he making those mistakes because he's in the wrong role? You're putting an expectation on a player that he's not able to fill because of the players he's playing with. And
that's a good point.
And the timing you're putting him out there. If you flip Beauvillier, who, again, I think plays a better style that suits playing next to Parise and Peugeot, move Bailey down back to the second line, move Palmieri back up.
Right.
And have 26, 29, 12. And that to me is a stronger line. And then 11, 44, 18
Yeah.
is also a really good line because then they kind of have a finisher on that line that's
Right.
different, right? And
I
then
agree with
he's
you.
playing a little bit. Bavillier's playing a little bit more of that energetic game that they're trying to get Wallstrom to play, but he's not that player.
Right.
He's not that type of player. They do need now. Nelson would benefit not only from Bailey being back on that line as a distributor, but Wallstrom can also pass the puck. And that's two kind of good offensive minds playing together. I know we're
Right.
like galaxy braining this lineup to just
No, but I
work,
understand your
but
point. And the thing in my mind too is right, like I'm not necessarily sitting here and saying that I agree with this statement, but a lot of people do say that the best defense is a good offense. So if say Wallstrom is in an increased role and he's helping drive the offense with a guy like let's just say Nelson and Bailey or on the Barzell line, if they're holding the puck more, there's less chances for those defensive mistakes to happen. Or, there's also like maybe how Trotz is thinking, more chances for those defensive mistakes to happen too. So I
I
see both
definitely
sides of this argument.
I also wonder if Wallstrom not being on that first line, thinking of I'm trying to aside from like the individual players' abilities, I'm also trying to think of the energy that they're trying to bring out on the ice with each shift. I don't think you can have Lee and Wallstrom out there with Barzell. That's not enough speed. You need somebody with that's a little bit more dynamic out there than to play with Barzell.
That's when
Then
you put all your cards on the first line with Bavillier, Barzell, and Wallstrom,
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna do that, I guess,
or
yeah,
even Parise.
I would give Bavillier that chance to lose it
I agree with you, but
before going with the
Parise,
safe bet in Parise. I
it's not. It's
give
not that it's the safe bet. It's the same kind of player as Lee, net front presence with speed. Lee
no, I'm
doesn't have
talking
the
about
speed.
I'm talking like I think that's why, but
I see what you
Wallstrom,
mean.
Barzell, Bavillier provides that balance on both sides that I think Barzell is looking for. It's that
Right.
a right-handed shot that is more of a shoot first type player that can pass well, and that's the opposite to Barzell, who is
Right.
a pass first player that can shoot well. And then Bavillier just really needs to be the energy out there. I don't
Right.
think they need somebody in front of the net, and that's the only type of player that can play on the left side of Barzell. I don't really care about that. I don't that doesn't mean anything to me. They needed some energy. They need a dynamic, energetic line with skill. They just doing this like you're trying to like be a chemist here and get everything. It doesn't make any sense like that. It's clearly not working. So there's that. Whether or not we're Hall of Fame coaches or not, like it's not working, dude. So try literally anything. He's moving. He's trying to like chess match this together, one or two players moving it around. He was really good at that the last two playoffs. Whether it was Brassard the one year, these little tweaks, he was able to kind of push the right buttons. That's you need to push multiple buttons. And I'm not talking about button mash. We're not playing video games, but
Right.
you might need to strategically kind of lay some stuff out here
Right.
and change some things. Um, One of the players we keep mentioning here, just to move the conversation forward, one of the players we keep mentioning here is Palmieri. What have you thought about his return to the line the last two games?
He's been okay. He's in the box a lot.
Too
You know,
aggressive?
maybe he's being a little too aggressive. A couple slashing penalties. I think he got a tripping tonight. Yeah, maybe he's being a little aggressive because he's trying to come back into the lineup, make that difference, and be the player that they signed him to be for the next. He's got 3 more years after this, so
Oof.
he's trying to be aggressive. He's making some mistakes though. Um, I'm still not sold that he's this terrible player everyone's making him out to be. I'm not. And I understand that there were maybe was regression when he was still with New Jersey and when he got traded to the Islanders, there was maybe just that little bit of energetic jolt from him, from being back in the playoffs and performing well. I'm just not sold that he's not a good player. He's having a horrible season. It happens. I just think that if he was supported the right way, he would be much more effective. I think they I think we alluded to this earlier. They're just expecting or he's trying to do too much because he's expected to do more than what he's capable of doing.
I'll I'll say this, and I can't. I think it's my next point here. Dealing with saying he's trying to do too much. Um, I do want to talk about the fans' reaction to his return as well, and some of my own thoughts on it. Um, I think the team. Tell me if you agree. They're playing like they have something to lose, and that's making them play bad. They're playing. They're not playing their own game. They're not dictating. They're waiting and seeing and reacting, which is that first 5 minutes of these games, or the first 10 minutes of the games when they're allowing 1 or 2 goals, the last 5 games, they're not setting the tone and doing their thing. They need to kind of play like they have nothing to lose. They're
Yeah.
so far out of a playoff spot, as far as I mean, they see the same thing that we're seeing. It's not crazy.
Right.
They have a long way to go. They say it every post game. They need to play like they're out
Right.
in a good way. Relax. Put the
I see that.
shoulders down. Stop gripping the stick so tight. Go out there and go have fun and play your game.
Yeah.
Stop thinking so much. Just do what you know is you act a little bit more on instinct. Relax out there with the puck. It's like a fucking hand grenade on half these guys' sticks. They're not relaxed. You just see them gripping the stick too tight.
Yeah. I mean, they're mathematically 21 points out with 8 games in hand on Washington, and they're 20 no, they're 18 points out, 17 points out on Boston with 5 games in hand. So, yeah.
Yeah, they need to start playing like that. I honestly believe they need to play like there's nothing to lose. And you see that with teams late in the season when things are slipping. It's after the trade deadline. All of a sudden they rattle off a bunch of games. They
Yeah.
win a bunch of games. It's because they have nothing to play. There's nothing to lose. They're already out. All of a sudden they're playing more relaxed. They're just playing out. They're going out there and playing hockey.
Yeah.
And do you think that might be an approach that they need to kind of take on,
Yeah.
and maybe good things happen. Maybe they can turn around. They start beating the Caps and Boston. Those two teams slip a little bit. They have to lose games sometimes. Timing just works out. Blah blah blah. Here they are in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that was actually perfectly stated. That's how I would have, said it myself. Just go out there and play like you got nothing to lose. I think that the fact of the matter is every post game they're reminded, like, hey, you're X amount of points out. Like, what's the plan here moving forward? And they're, we still plan to make the playoffs. We're going to try, and it's just that constant reminder. So,
It's not impossible.
maybe the mindset does need to change in that aspect. It's not impossible. No, it's not. But
Their magic number now, according to Isle's magic number, which is super helpful because I don't math good, so I don't know anything about that. And Eric Hornick doesn't do it every single day. I don't know how often he does it, but I know he does. But apparently that number is now at 94,
right.
which is not impossible. It is
No.
just a lot of points between now and the end of the season because I can't remember
Yeah.
how many points they have right now.
38.
Yeah, they have to win over 30 games of the remaining 44 games.
Yeah.
That's what seems impossible. And the only way you do crazy shit is if you kind of stop trying so hard. If you're just
They need to win 28 games
that's also just
for
like a
94
life.
points.
That's just a life thing,
Yeah.
Relax a little. You're capable.
Yeah.
Just relax a little and do your thing.
Yeah, that's true.
It might not be pretty the whole time, but they were going to lose games anyway. Even if they were going to make the playoffs, they're going to lose.
Right.
They're going to lose games they shouldn't. They're going to lose games that they should by worse than they should have.
It doesn't seem impossible. Like, 28 games doesn't sound that bad.
I think it's about who they're beating. I'm going to beat that drum
Yeah.
into the ground. It's all about who they beat in that
No,
time.
I totally get that. And moving forward, I mean, the schedule is going to be tough. After Seattle, I think first of all they go on a long road trip. and they're in the West Coast for like 9 out of 11.
Oh, great.
They'll be in Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. They'll go to Buffalo, back home against Boston and Montreal, and then back out to Seattle, San Jose, Los Angeles, Anaheim, Colorado, and then they're home for a while again. But they're mostly in the month of February. They're away. There's 4 home games and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 away games. So
Sometimes that's not been the case with this team, but sometimes when teams are kind of going through it, they go on a road trip, they kind of come together.
that's
They're
true.
spending a little bit more time together. They're not able to go out the same way, just the current health situation, to put it lightly, puts a little bit of a damper on that. But traveling and kind of going and doing this stuff, it's a lot, it's a lot less distractions, different ones, but less maybe with family and this and that. You kind of go out there and do your thing, take care of business after the All-Star break and do your thing. I would love it. Just put your hair down. There's just
Yeah.
don't be so uptight. Go out there,
Yeah.
play your game. They play a very structured game, and that's mentally exhausting. They
Yeah.
need to look, you're gonna wear a tie. Loosen it a little bit. Drop
You know,
that top button. This is the dance at the wedding. You don't need to look good for pictures no more. It's not pretty. You're out, go have fun.
yeah.
Good things might happen. I don't know about the dancing part and good things that happen. I don't know what that means. But as far as hockey's concerned, go out there
Right.
and have some fun and see what happens. I think that's going to be a major thing kind of moving forward for them, that they're going to need to figure that out.
I think of the road trip. Maybe they've been home so much that maybe they're just comfortable, in their routines every day.
They
They
can be
they
complacent and doing
they
their
could be
thing.
right. And that's the thing, right? They're coming to the rink after, being home for X amount of time. And I understand there was practice in the morning, but they go home after and they hang out and then they come back to the rink. Maybe being on the road, there's less to do and they're antsy to, get going and do something. And, by the time game time comes, they come out and are a little more aggressive. That maybe that's a thing. But after the All-Star break, tough road ahead. 28 games doesn't sound bad, but it's tough when you're playing, on the road for 9 out of 11, this month, and they're going to see Calgary. Let's see what Edmonton's got now that they signed Evander Kane. That'll be a conversation for another time. They're going to see Los Angeles. They're going to see Anaheim. They're going to see Colorado, and then they come back home, and the Blues come into town. Colorado comes back. Winnipeg. So it's not going to be easy, but
Yeah,
28 also doesn't sound hard.
I think it's about who they're playing, who they're beating. They just need to string some stuff together here against good teams. I think they need that more for themselves than for the fans.
Right.
I think if they go out and they can beat Seattle tomorrow. I think that's one thing. But what's the next game against a team in playoff position?
The next game against the team in playoff position is Saturday the 12th against Calgary.
Go out there and beat the wheels off them.
Yeah.
It's going to make everyone feel good.
Yeah. I mean,
Go out there and do your thing.
Right now, they just won the game. Comeback win. They were losing 3-1, and they just won 4-3 against Dallas. But
Mangiapane,
Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, 20 goals on the season, I believe, for Mangiapane, 19 on the road. If he didn't score another one since the last tweet I saw, 20 minutes ago, just incredible. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Palmieri's return before we kind of wrap this up here.
Sure.
Fans seem to think and rightfully so. He's a goal scorer, and that's what he's kind of there to do. They pay him quite a bit of money, and for the next 3 years, as you pointed out, after this one. He cannot be another role player. We've discussed that we have a little bit too many of them, and they're a little bit too overpaid. A lot of bit overpaid. Fans, that doesn't make you happy. I know. I didn't like saying it.
Sigh.
Fans were really on his case, despite what I thought he played really well. He's not finishing. Like, you can't use that excuse for everybody, right? It was the same thing with Parise. You can't have all these guys in the lineup with 1 goal or 2 goals, and you're like, oh, it's just a low shooting percentage. I guess it's just that kind of year. It's like, no, that's not how it fucking works. Like, you got to figure it out. Like, you're a professional.
Right.
I can't, like, my job is writing. I can't just write bad for like 3 weeks and be like, I guess it's just what's coming out of my brain today. Like, no, that's just like, they're like, no, see you later. What the hell? You've written gobbledygook for like you're writing in wingdings for like 3 weeks. Stop. That's not anything. It's kind of the same thing. Like, it's just not what you're there to do.
Right.
And it just makes it really difficult. So I can understand fans' frustration, but at the same time, he was getting his chances. He was playing a little bit of hard-nosed hockey that, frankly, it needed a little bit of an injection in that. So I thought it was really good that the Islanders have played pretty well with him in his first 2 games back. He didn't really look out of place overall.
Right. No, I don't disagree. Couple silly mistakes from him that I would hope he could, get figured out as he tries to make an impact in the lineup. But yeah, I agree with you for the most part. Just figure out a way to get the puck in the back of the net. Like I said, the thing is, a lot of the fans and the reaction to Palmieri is drawing the comparison to Jordan Eberle, and they're just not the same player. So that's where the frustration comes in. Everybody looks at the goal totals and they'll say, throughout each of their careers, oh, they each score 20 plus. That's the same. And yes, that is the same, but how they get there is different. Palmieri's a below the dots kind of guy, whereas Jordan Eberle was a skills guy. He created his own chances, and that's maybe what the Islanders are lacking. They're missing a little bit of Jordan Eberle because he had that playmaking ability,
He's
even though he's a
more
goal
dynamic.
scorer. Yeah, he's
And
more dynamic.
that's that's what I think they're missing in this lineup is
Right.
somebody not named Barzell, and
Yes.
not when Brock Nelson can pull off a toe drag here and there that really can make things happen for themselves
Yes.
and their line mates. I think that's kind of the problem. They just don't have. And I see this comment, Andre, from a few minutes ago. I don't know that it's high end necessarily. It's just like it's just the wrong group of players. They just
Maybe.
don't have the right skill.
Right.
They went really hard on the roles of just kind of like hard nosed and high energy and all that, but they just need something else.
I think it works in a short playoff series because they beat the crap out of other teams. In a long 82 game season, it's hard to keep up with. You saw how long Palmieri was just out injured. Previously before him, there were other guys out too. Nelson was out with injury. Forget the COVID stuff. Pulak was out with injury. So, the hard grindy type players for a long 82 game season might not be the right formula. You need those skill players too, because, a guy like Matthew Barzell is going to avoid taking a big hit because he could skate circles around you. Palmieri's just going in trying to hurt somebody, not
Oh,
not
he's a
take him
bubble
out, but
hockey hard nosed kind of
yeah,
guy.
he's a hard nosed kind of guy. So and the more you do that, the more likely it is for you to get injured at some point. So, not enough Jordan Eberle's and a little bit too many Kyle Palmieri's in this lineup right now.
And I think that's the thing is there's a lot of the same type of player, and they are all snake bitten.
Right.
They're all aside from goals here and there, you have too many players that really should be making some kind of contribution offensively. They're doing okay in their own zone.
Yeah.
They're just not carrying the play like they used to. That energy just isn't there. The fourth line has come alive as of late, which is really great. Even Martin's getting a ton of chances. Um, you obviously like the play right up the middle. All the centers are playing well in their own right. But you need every forward not named Barzell and Nelson to contribute a little bit more on a regular basis. Really, like, Wallstrom, there was a really big stretch where he wasn't. You can
Yeah.
talk about his playing time. As coaches used to tell me, it's not about how long you're out there; it's about what you do when you are.
Right.
You have to make the most of your opportunities, and that's really hard. It's a hard pill to swallow for a young player. It was a hard pill for me to swallow myself as a young player. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted more ice time, and that wasn't always the answer.
Right.
You kind of have to figure it out, and you bounce back and you find ways, and it's a really difficult learning experience. But you can't have Bailey, Bavillier, Palmieri, Parise, Peugeot, Wallstrom here and there simply not contribute.
Yeah, and I think the problem too is it's not that they thought that this was going to happen. I think they thought Bavillier was going to take that step. That's why he got a 3-year contract extension.
Well, fuck, we've said that for him. How many you can look back in the last 3 years with Bavillier. Look at the start of the last 3 seasons with him. Every year, someone's writing, this is Bavillier's year to break out.
No, and I agree with you. I think you just, in the recent memory of what was going on before he was signed to a contract, he was just doing so well in the playoffs. He was that big game player showing up in big moments,
That's a
doing
lot of these
big
players.
things. I know, I agree with you. I
That's
just think
just
I think at the time when he was due for the contract after the playoffs were all said and done, part of that negotiation process with the agents are, look what he just did for you in the playoffs. Look at how many big goals he scored for you in big moments. You think he's not going to do that again? Those negotiations, that happens. If that was said by Bavillier's agent, is he wrong? Right now, yeah, it's pretty wrong. Not many big goals scored, not many plays he's driven this season. But back when the contract was due for renewal, that's what the conversation was. And I understand, all of us can sit here and talk about that's not what the charts and graphs say, but that's what I don't know how much Lou Lamoriello and Trotz look into the charts and graphs. There is an analytics team, I know that, but via the eye test, he looks the part. It's just not translating on the score sheet right now.
I think too many of these players for me aren't even passing the eye test.
Right.
They're
That too.
like I said, like when you look at tonight's game, or when I looked at tonight's game, or I was watching it, it seemed like a very like they just happened to score goals type thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a largely good game. It was a lot of like guys on the ice. Hockey is jazz to begin with, where it's like it's obviously very unpredictable, and it just sounds like someone mashing a piano. But lots of turnovers and things, and back and forth, and the camera is not in one spot for very long, and it's a very messy game. But like I don't know, it just seemed like a bubble hockey game where it was like it was going, it was going, it was going. The puck was in the net.
Tonight?
I don't know. Yeah, it didn't seem like I don't know.
I didn't
A lot of
I didn't
like
think so. I think in the first 5 minutes, yeah, but after that, I thought they controlled the pace of play. And again, the
maybe
Senators last place, they're missing 4 key guys, and it might not mean much. It
that's
means
been most
more.
of their wins. That didn't mean much
Right.
other
It,
than
it
to win.
means it means more to them right now because they're looking to, again, like I said, make the playoffs. That in their mind, that's what they want to do. That's not changing for them.
No.
But for you and I sitting there watching, and commentating on it, it's not enough. And you know maybe they can take that confidence after a game like this and go into the next one and get another win and build up on those 2 points and sneak into the playoffs. And then that style of hockey is suddenly, sustainable again for them. They get back into the playoffs, they do it again, they beat the crap out of another team and just grind out wins. But yeah, over an 82 game season, that's a tough way to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up? It is late.
It is late to Seattle tomorrow night or tonight as you hear it, depending on if you're not listening to the live version, and then a nice little break. You know, temper your expectations for the rest of the season. Try not to rip your hair out, and we'll see where things go. I'm even in a weird spot myself, trying to figure out and talking to people at the fourth period and everything. What the hell are the Islanders going to do? They're in such a weird spot right now where do they buy? Do they sell? Do they just do nothing at the
If they're gonna
deadline?
buy, my opinion is, and what I wrote that in my last piece was, they had to do it soon. Their
Yeah,
runway is run out. Rubber is the car is moving. Just a matter of what direction. They don't have time. That here's the thing. If they think they can make the playoffs this year, they don't have that thing that Lou always says, where if I have time, I'm going to use it. that's what their intention is, to make the
Yeah,
playoffs. If
you know,
the intention is not to make the playoffs, you have until September to figure this out. You have plenty of time. What is the plan? How are they viewing all this? I don't know that I definitely agree if they think they can make the playoffs or not. I don't know. They might not have expressed this to the players, but I'm thinking about management and that kind of thing.
I think the only thing that management will do moving forward, if they do make a deal, is something that's not just for now. It's like it's going to be a hockey trade. Obviously, there's nothing else you can do. Not confirming anything, not saying anything, and I'm pretty sure nothing has happened on this front yet. But Brock Besser's name is been said to be available. That's a guy that you should be all over.
It's an offseason, just like
He
Andre just said in the comments here.
yeah,
Yeah, I understand. I think if there's a hockey trade to be made, you do it. And Staples said the same thing. If they're 20 points out and they can get Chikrin, they're going to do it.
right.
They're happy to take that player away from contending teams going into this year's playoffs that can win a cup, and then he's also there next season and for a few others after that. Totally
Right.
understand, and I agree with it. The thing is, there's no reason to wait. If you can do it now, and kind of give these players something to play for.
Well, I
Even
think
if they don't make the playoffs, like it just kind of decide what's going on.
the thing becomes, when trying to make a trade like that is, you know, you get into a bidding war with a deadline, right? The trade deadline coming up, you make an offer, and the next team, you know, finds out and they call up and they make a better offer. That's when you get into a bidding war. If you don't start that bidding war and the Canucks end up, for argument's sake, the Canucks end up going to the deadline and not moving Brock Besser, but then in the offseason they're willing to, that's when you could take your time with it because there's no deadline. So the price might go down a little bit.
It's true. I think that's complicated, and I'm not sure as not a GM how all those things kind of.
I'm glad it's not my job.
I am glad. I'd rather do this side of it than be the GM, because I would be very lost
Yeah.
in Lou Lamorielle's chair.
This is largely not EA Sports.
Largely, and I have not played one of those games in some time. So or at least not in GM mode, which was my favorite thing.
Yeah, me too.
I loved kind of doing those over multiple years and kind of bringing up the players, trying to draft the same players that the Islanders did and keep the team together and make those trades.
Yeah, me too.
Really hard to do.
Yes.
I think I have the last one that I have is like 17. Whatever the last one was for 360. Because they stopped making them for a while when Xbox One came out.
Yeah.
So it's something 16 or 17. I have it somewhere. So
that sounds right.
Completely different Islander team kind of locked away in this this CD forever. Which is kind of nice. All right, before we jump into anything else, let's wrap this up. Thank you to DraftKings. Make sure to use that THPM promo code with them, especially leading up to the Super Bowl. Super cool. Use the link as we tweet it out, or you can find it through the THPN Twitter. And make sure to use that NHP20 promo code with Manscaped. Make sure everything is nice and tight for Valentine's Day. Everyone involved. Thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network, Isles Fix, and of course all of you. Thanks for sticking with us. It's been a tough season. Not always fun to do these. Even after a win, somehow we made this not not super fun. But that's just kind of what's happening right now, and what the energy level is of everything. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen or watch the show. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, social media, Nassauman Hockey. You can join the discussion on Discord. You can find James's work at the Fourth Period. You can find my work at Hockey Writers, and make sure you subscribe to Isles Fix for your daily, weekday Isles news. Every day, 5 days a week. Oh, not every day, and that doesn't make any sense. 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. Make sure you subscribe. It's really good. It's a late one, folks. Okay, until next time. Tomorrow, make sure join us also for one of these tomorrow. We're doing it after the Seattle game. So
or tonight if you're hearing the recorded version.
So join us tonight. So until next time, tonight, let's go Islanders.